Hey everybody, Derek here to bring another video for The Walking Dead, Season 7. And what I want to do with this video is look at Daryl's escape from the sanctuary in the mid-season finale, look at whether there will be consequences to Alexandria because of Daryl's escape, will Negan go after him, and if he does, what will happen as a result. If you are not caught up with The Walking Dead and you do not want to be spoiled in any way, then I suggest you exit the video now and come back later, because otherwise you will be spoiled. Okay, so in the mid-season finale of Season 7, Daryl escaped from the sanctuary. He had been held there ever since the beginning of Season 7. Many of the individuals in the Saviors, they thought that Daryl was of the material that they were looking for in soldiers, that he could later be used as one of Negan's lieutenants to go out there, to find more communities, get things from them. They thought that Daryl had that, similar behavior that other people did as well. But Daryl stood up strong to all that, because of his guilt from Glenn's death. And in a sense, to honor Glenn, he did not give in. He did not cave despite the torture, despite the cold conditions, the cell, all of that. He did not give in. And of course, Negan and Dwight had been in charge of, in a sense, trying to get him to turn, to become one of the Saviors. And Dwight was really the one that was given that task. But as we know, Daryl escaped. Now, he had a little bit of help, but we don't know from who, because the key to his motorcycle was left in his cell with a note. And Daryl was able to escape. He got out to his bike. And at that point, he killed one of the Saviors named Joey. And when he did that, he got on the bike with Jesus. He left, went back to the hilltop, and he was reunited with his friends from Alexandria in that episode. So we have Daryl escaping, and obviously, again, he did have some help when he escaped, which makes me wonder if maybe some of the events from that might end up being revealed later on in this season. We might find out that maybe it was Dwight that did it, or maybe it was Sherry without Dwight's knowledge, or perhaps they were both behind it. But I think that there are sadly going to be consequences to Alexandria because Daryl escaped. You've seen that Negan, the way that he feels about Rick's group, he obviously feels very threatened by them, and that is the reason why he's been so hard on them. He hasn't really let anything go. Any little, thing that seems to happen, he comes down very hard on them. Several people have died in the community since Negan's introduction. So I think that Daryl escaping is definitely going to be something that is on Negan's priority of things to deal with. So I think that he will go to Alexandria, or he's going to send people to Alexandria to, in a sense, either bring Daryl back or kill him. I think that that could go either way, but I would not be surprised if when they do go there, that there are going to be some very, terrible scenes potentially taking place. I've often thought about what would happen, thinking about Negan doesn't know yet. In the current storyline in the TV show, Negan has no idea that Daryl escaped. He was in Alexandria when all of this was going down, so he's going to go back and find out what happened. And he might immediately turn around and go back, or I could see him sending Dwight, which I think is definitely going to be very interesting to see who will go to Alexandria and what will happen as a result. Because I could see this playing out in one of two ways, that they, in a sense, incorporate some things from the comic books into this storyline. Let me give you a little bit, let me give you a little bit of background from the comic books. There are two particular events that take place that I think could be replicated as a result of this incident. The first one is from issue 101. So this is the issue right after Glenn was killed. And what ends up happening is Rick and the group end up going back to Alexandria after Glenn was killed, and they find out that it's been attacked, that Saviors attacked the place, but they were able to repel them. And they find out that Dwight is there, that actually they were able to take Dwight as a prisoner, but because of Rick's fear of what the Saviors might do if they kill him, they decide to let Dwight go. So that could potentially play over into the TV show, and I'll explain in a little bit. But the other thing is from right at the beginning of when the Saviors War kind of begins. What ends up happening is Rick, all this time, unlike in the TV show where he's been feeling very down, he's been feeling very scared, fearful of what's going to happen, we really seen him being broken by Negan. In the comic books, he never really went through that. He had some doubtful moments, but overall, he was able to overcome those fears because he was introduced to the Hilltop and the Kingdom, and he stayed strong to himself and his purpose of eventually taking down Negan. Whereas in the TV show, he hasn't even been introduced to the Kingdom yet, so they don't really have a stable plan going forward. So I think that's a lot of the differences. But what ends up happening is Negan comes to pick up his next batch of supplies, and they decide to form a plan to try to kill him. And they're able to trap him outside of the gate. Andrea tries to snipe him, but she is unsuccessful. And Negan survives the assassination, and it results in a couple of things going on where basically there's some threats laid out, some people put in danger, and the Kingdom and the Hilltop end up coming to Rick's group's rescue in that scene. I could actually see both of those events taking place from this chain of events, because I do think that Negan is going to, at least send somebody to come get Daryl, but whether he will come himself, that's a big factor of what's going to happen. Because if you remember in the trailer that they just introduced, I believe that you hear Rick alluding to the fact that Negan is eventually going to come and try to get Daryl, and they need to be back there before that happens. I could see a situation where they get back there and either Negan's already there or the Saviors are coming and they're able to beat them back in time. And I could see that Negan might come in the gates, the usual way. He goes, hey, just wanted to let you know Daryl escaped. You have anything to do with this? Or, maybe try to play a little game with Rick to try to see if he's aware that Daryl is there, maybe. Maybe there's evidence that Daryl is there. Or he might not believe Rick if he asks if Daryl is there and he's able to say, no, he's not. I could see a situation where Negan puts people at risk for Daryl's sake. With everything else that has happened, Negan is obviously not very happy with Rick's group, and just the little slightest thing, he's not going to let go. So I could see him lining people up, kind of like how he did in the season premiere, and basically yelling out for Daryl to come out and reveal himself, or he's going to kill somebody. So in a sense, maybe relaying that, Daryl was responsible for Glenn's death. He might say, hey, Daryl, you really want to be responsible for somebody else's death? Do you want me to beat somebody here and, you're going to be responsible for that? Or are you going to come out and be a man? So Daryl might be in Alexandria. They might hide him. And then at that point, Negan's going to try to lull him out or lure him out of where he's at. And Daryl's going to have to make a choice. So potentially we could see that Negan might actually be there and might be the one that's doing this. Then at that point, I think that either Rick's group or a combination of Rick, the Kingdom, and the Hilltop, that maybe they hide people in the community and they come out and they're able to attack. That this might be, again, one of the first big events of the Saviors War, that Daryl's escape has really been the catalyst that's going to result in Saviors coming there without much of a plan, without thinking ahead of what they're going to do, or planning ahead of the fact that they could be running into danger, and they might run into a trap. And I could very easily see this being the time that maybe they might try to kill Negan, or many of the Saviors might die because they aren't expecting an attack after all that's happened. So I think that really they're going to end up walking into a trap if this storyline plays out. Now, there is a chance that Negan might not go. It does make me wonder if he would risk going there without a plan, but he might end up sending Dwight and several of the Saviors. And that's where I could see a situation where something similar goes down to what I just described, but then Dwight ends up getting captured. So many of the Saviors die, maybe some of them get away, some of them don't, and maybe as a result, Dwight ends up getting taken prisoner, which in the comic books, he was taken prisoner much earlier than some of the events that we've seen. Because I've always thought that there's still a chance that Dwight, being a double agent, betraying the Saviors, betraying Negan and trying to take him out, I could see that this storyline from the comic books, that this is the time where it's going to play out. That, as a result of going there to try to get Daryl back, the Saviors are surprised. They're able to take, many of them out. They capture Dwight. Dwight is then put in the cell, maybe. Maybe they try to, feel him out, see what they can get from him, try to figure out what they're going to do. And then at that point, it's the moment when Dwight reveals a lot of things, and he reveals that, hey, I hate Negan just as much as you do. I'm an inside man. I will go there. I will help you. I give you my word. You let me go. I'm going to help you win this war. And that could lead to the events of, Rick's group making a plan from there. So I think in some way, shape, or form, that is really what's going to happen. I think that Daryl's escape is definitely going to have serious consequences, but I think that Alexandria is going to take advantage of the situation. They're going to plan some kind of a trap. Perhaps the kingdom will help them. Maybe they'll send people to help, or maybe they'll give Rick's group weapons, and that will allow them to have a surprise attack waiting for when the Saviors come back. And I really do think that if Negan is not there, I think that it'll be Dwight that maybe leads them, and then Dwight will get captured, and that will lead to that storyline in the comics where he becomes a double agent. And if Negan does end up going, then he's going to survive, and it's at that point where we'll know that it's war. Like this is the start of the war. This is the start where things are going to take off. And I think that it is going to happen in the mid-season premiere. I think that really this first episode really needs to be big. It needs to be the start of something. And I could really see this episode taking the kingdom, finding a way to make them fit into this, as well as Rick's group letting Negan know, we're done, we're not being bullied, it's war, and it is starting now. So that's what I think is going to happen. I think there are going to be some big, serious events happening in this upcoming episode in the mid-season premiere. So let me know what you guys think. Do you think that storyline is going to play out? Do you have some other idea of what might happen? Don't be afraid to let me know. Feel free to subscribe. I do have more videos coming. And if you have any suggestions for future videos that you would like to see, don't be afraid to suggest them. Have a very wonderful evening, and thank you all very much for watching.